Hello, everybody. Happy Friday. We made it. Hope everybody's doing well. I'm going to give it here another minute. People to join in. Hey, Ari, how you doing? Ever faithful. Fernando, what's up, man? How you doing, bro? Glad you guys can join in. Very nice. This time I didn't forget my lesson. I got the right one here, so I don't have to be running back to my desk. I'm doing all right, man. I'm doing good, bro. It's kind of gloomy, but we're all right. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and get started here. It's 1:15. I want to try to keep it here under half an hour. And thank you for the hearts. Appreciate that. But well, before we get started, I just want to start off with a little word of prayer. And then we'll go into our lesson today. Father, we thank you today, Lord, for giving us this time, this moment again, Lord, to learn your word, to study, Father, the things that you have left us, to become better in life, to better ourselves, better our relationships with our families, our friends, and eventually with those who we'll choose to spend the rest of our life with. Father, I ask you to teach us these principles. Let them come into our heart, Father. And wherever anybody may find themselves in their relationship, Father, right now, in Jesus' name, I ask you to please allow this word to sink into their hearts and that things may begin to get better. It's never too late, Father, if we trust in you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right, just to do a quick little recap, guys. We are talking about The 5 Love Languages by a book by Gary Chapman. Again, you can go on to my link on my videos under description, and you have a link to the PDF file of the book itself, or and the web page if you want to purchase your own copy of the book or take the assessment. It's really, really cool. But just to do a recap, we were talking about we're on chapter 4, and we've talked about what happens to the love after the wedding. Why it seems to break down and fall apart. Chapter 2, we talked about the fact that everybody has a love tank, a need, a desire to love and to be loved. And if that love tank is not being filled, that's where relationships fall apart and go bad. We talked about in chapter 3 about the falling in love phenomenon, the falling in love experience within human experience, and how initially it starts off as a place where people come together, but it's never the place where the final decision should be made of whether you should end up with that person. There's boundaries and limitations of what you share during times of dating and falling in love. And then there's things that you share and continue to share and move forward with after you commit and become married. And so we talked about the falling in love experience, and we talked about the difference between falling in love and being in love and being married. And so we also moved into chapter 4 and began talking about the first love language, which is words, the way we use our words, how important words are in our experience, in our relationship, in our experience with other humans, how we will give account for our words to God, how we will be responsible, how words can actually affect the course of our life. The things that we say can actually take our life, can actually destroy our life, and it's very important to build some kind of healthy frame of mind around what you're saying, and to have a presence and understanding of what's coming out of our mouths at all times. And then so we talked about words of affirmation, how to affirm the person you love, to motivate their desire to do more for you, their desire to be involved. So you affirm them with your words. We talked about encouraging words, which is where we left off at, how you can encourage a person, be it a friend, family, boyfriend, girlfriend, or in this case, your spouse, your husband or your wife, how you can encourage them for the purpose of unlocking their potential, to do and become what they're supposed to and what they can. It's not really a manipulation of trying to get them to do something, run away from it. You bring each other closer to each other by investing in your relationship in ways that usually is really hard and we don't want to and desire to. And so we left off on encouraging words. We're moving into 3 more sections: kind words, humble words, and various dialects. And so we'll go through with that. I'm going to start off with kind words. In 1 Corinthians chapter 13, you'll find it's considered the love chapter. And if you want a really nice definition and description of what love is supposed to look like, what true love is supposed to look like, go read 1 Corinthians chapter 13. It's an awesome book. But I want to hone in particularly on the part where it says love is kind. Kind words. One of the hardest things to do especially when you're feeling angry, when you're feeling emotional towards somebody who's offended you, towards somebody who's let you down, it's really hard to develop and produce kind words for people who don't deserve kind words. But again, we talked about the fact that love and true love is not something that we decide on based on what we feel or the emotions that we feel in the moment. True love is a decision to love a person and show love because you care about them despite how imperfect they are, despite the things that they do wrong. Kind of like the love that God shows us. And that's the love we're trying to model. It's the love that God has for you and me. I mean, really, think about all the bad things you've done. Think about all the crazy bad things we've done. And to think about the fact that God's love has not changed for us. He loves us the same way He's always loved us when you've been your worst. And right now, while you're trying to become your best, God's love has been consistent and it's been there. And imagine if God's love was like ours, where the moment we did something bad to offend Him, He's like, forget you, man, I'm out of here. Yeah, that would be pretty sucky if God bailed out on us and turned His back on us every time we did something wrong. And so in the spirit of that, who are we to turn our back on those we say we love? Who are we to judge and come down and send to hell those who mess up and make mistakes? And it's something really hard because it's hurtful. And so anyways, we're talking about kind words. Love is kind. Christian, good to see you, bro. Thanks for joining us here. So one thing I wanted to point out in regards to kind words, something that we never really pay attention to, and it caught me by surprise too, is that when we say something or when somebody says something to us, we interpret the tone of their voice before we actually process what they've actually said. And it's all right, bro. Better late than never. Listen to this. We interpret. Next time you hear somebody, pay attention to how you listen to them, because you'll notice that you will interpret the tone of their voice or the tone of how they're saying something before you necessarily process what they're actually saying. And this is very important to pay attention to, because it's one of the best things to understand when it comes to listening skills. Because if you're not aware of how you're interpreting something because of the tone of voice that they're using, it's going to totally distort and mess up the message that they're actually trying to convey to you and me. And that's one of the biggest problems with communication. I'll be the first to admit, man, I've had a big problem with this, not knowing how to regulate or understand the tone that I'm going to say something in. And so therefore, the person that's listening to me never actually gets the message I really, really want them to know and understand, because they're so distracted by the tone of voice that I used. And because I've never paid attention to my tone, it's become a problem. It became a problem in my life. And so this is where I'm at right now, is learning how to regulate my tone and think about what I'm going to say, but first of all, how I'm going to say it. Very important. You will save yourself a lifetime of trouble and sorrow and fights and problems if you just stop Watch your emotions and pay attention to how you're about to say what you're about to say. Because people interpret your tone of voice before they interpret your words. And so what happens when these tones, when we don't pay attention to the tones that we use, we end up sending double messages. Well, what are these double messages? What do they look like? Well, when you're sending something without being careful of your tone, what you do is you're conveying, or you're saying what you feel. You say what you feel, but you end up saying it in an unloving way. For example, Alana asked me, and I'm really tired or something sometimes, and she asked me, "Hey babe, can you feed the dogs?" You know, it's 10:30 at night, 11. I'm getting ready to go to bed, and you know, and I crack a little attitude, and under my voice, I'm like, "Yeah, I'll feed the dogs as usual." You know, now that right there, you're saying, okay, yeah, I'll do it. But the as usual tone or whatnot is showing sarcasm. It's showing that you don't really feel like doing it. But since I'm trying to show my wife that I love her, I'm not doing a good job of being sarcastic and not following through with what she wants me to do with a good attitude. And so what does a good response to that look like? Instead of saying with an attitude, yes, as usual, I could say, okay, I love my wife. I don't feel like doing this, but because I don't want to send a message of being unloving towards her, I'm going to stop and I'm going to say this right. And I turn around and say, yes, love, I'll feed the dogs. Period. How you feel, whether you want to or not, does not matter. Because either you want to do it or you don't. So choose to do it or not to do it. If you don't want to do it, then say no. That might not go too well, you know. You might end up in the same place of coming across unloving. But at least you're not using sarcasm in your voice and making her feel unloved. Another example, somebody says something to you that you don't necessarily approve of, and you say okay, but with a question mark behind it, like, okay, that's sarcastic. And so while you might be approving or agreeing, you're not agreeing in a loving way. A better way to say that is, yes, babe, no problem. And you're, you know, you might not agree, but you're at least communicating with love that, okay, you're going to do this. You're going to settle for this. You're going to accept the answer. You're going to accept the statement. Another one, another statement that people could say is, for instance, my wife I come in from work and I'm really, really tired. And I've done this before. And as soon as I come in, she really already has something that she needs me to do right away because she's been waiting for me to come home. And so the moment I walk in the door, Alana is like, hey babe, can you do this for me? And I'm still like standing at the door and stuff. And my response, instead of just stopping and thinking about it, you know, I'm just thinking about how I feel at that moment, my emotions and my tiredness. And so I come back with, dang, dang, Daniel. No, I'm saying, dang, Pancho. Sorry, you guys messed me up with that dang Daniel thing. My response is, dang, can I settle in before you start asking me to do things? Okay, so even though I'm approving and saying, yes, I'll do it, but my main message is coming across unloving. And that's that, yeah, I'm going to do it, but geez, can't you let me just settle down and get, you know, take a breath before I do it? There's a way to communicate that without having to come across sarcastic and unloving. And what would be the alternate? What would be a way you can say that without coming across unloving? And I wrote down, yes, my love, I would love to do that for you, but let me settle in first and then I'll take care of it. So you're not necessarily doing it now, but you have also not come across unloving. And at the same time, you said, hey, I'm going to do it, but let me take a moment real fast to sit down and just catch my breath, and then I'll do it for you. Is that okay? So you're checking, you're communicating, you're being intentionally loving towards her. Even though you want to say it this way, and even though you got jokes and you got sarcasm, but you're choosing to use your words in ways that you are coming across loving as opposed to unloving. And so there are ways to share your feelings of hurt anger, disapproval with your spouse. There's nothing wrong with feeling angry. There's nothing wrong with feeling hurt. There's nothing wrong with feeling like you don't approve of what's being said or asked of you. But there's a way to show your disapproval in a way that doesn't come across unloving. And this has been one of the biggest problems with communications, that instead of choosing kind words to communicate the same message, we choose the love language, we choose the language that we've been brought up with, or that we're more familiar with, or actually comfortable with in some cases. And so how do you share your feelings of hurt and anger and disapproval in a way that's loving? One of the hardest things, unless you start practicing it. And I wrote down some comparisons. For instance, saying something like, "Hey babe, I felt disappointed and hurt that you didn't offer to help me last night when you seen me, washing dishes or cleaning up or trying to get the baby changed, or, and because I'm not listening to her and watching and paying attention to what she needs at that moment, I just pretty much just watched her work and didn't even offer to help." And so that hurt her. That kind of felt bad because she needed help. She was tired and she needed it. She wished. And so she communicated that to me. There's probably a lot more feelings there, but she communicated to me with respect and love. Okay? When in any other time she could have just been doing what she was doing and walked around the house ranting and raving like, "Nobody ever does anything around here but me. You guys are good for nothing." She could have done that, And what would she have said there? I would have been like, "Whatever. With that attitude, I don't even want to help you, eh?" And so changes the dynamic of how the other person is going to respond to you. Because she said, "Babe, it hurt me that you didn't offer to help me." As opposed to, "Man, you don't ever do anything around here. You're good for nothing, lazy." That totally, you guys can see how the effects would be different. Again, what this means is it's the difference between sharing your feelings and emotions instead of projecting your feelings and emotions. What does that mean? It means that you take the time to decide, I'm going to share this with the person, and I'm going to share it in a way that I'm not coming across disrespectful. And vice versa with the man towards a woman, I'm going to share this with her in a way that I'm not coming across unloving. Okay? And we're so used to projecting our negative feelings, where we're walking around, whatever, slamming doors, closing windows, acting foolish, and having attitudes in between the lines, where we don't like something, but instead of trying to communicate how we feel in a positive way, we're just throwing out little eye rolls, and you guys know what I'm talking about. We call it attitude. And that's very real because it's affecting and affects and affects and affects. Every time you do it, it affects. It sends a wrong message to that person. And after so many years of sending that same wrong message of unlovingness and disrespect, it becomes old. It wears down. And it destroys a relationship. Very important. And so what happens? Your tone, okay, your words and your tones are going to either communicate that you love the person or that you're condemning them and judging them. What is it that you want to convey? What is it that you want to communicate? Do you want to communicate that you love them and you're trying to work out something of communication in a good way? Or do you just want them to hear the condemnation and the judgment that you have on them? That's the difference between both in how you're saying something. And it goes across the board for everybody. And so your responses are going to either make the conversation and the communication, or it's going to break the conversation and the communication. If your goal, okay, with that person you love is to really have them hear and understand what you want them to understand, then you need to stop and make the decision to make sure that you're saying and communicating what you want them to understand in a way that's loving. Because if they hear it with love, then they're able to focus on what you're saying and not distracted by how you're saying it. This is hard, y'all. This is really hard. But the more we practice, the easier it becomes. And so, what happens when you start building this communication of being purposeful and intentional in how you communicate? Well, what happens is that your love begins to mature. Your marriage begins to mature. Your relationship begins to mature. Okay? It's no longer based on feelings and emotions. Now it's actually maturing because now you guys are acting real with each other. You're being who you are, but you're choosing to purposely love each other by the way you talk to each other, by the things you say to each other, and how you communicate your feelings to each other. And that's becoming a mature type of love, a true love. And so what happens? What happens when you choose to purposely speak maturely and loving to your spouse or respectfully to your spouse? What you're doing is you're diffusing and you're disabling what they call a crazy cycle. The crazy cycle is when I say something that sounds unloving to my wife, and because she's hurt with what I said, she's going to respond in a disrespectful way towards me. And because I feel hurt and disrespected, I'm going to respond with more unloving things to her. And because she feels unloved again and even greater, she's going to respond with greater disrespect. And what happens, it becomes a crazy cycle, back and forth, back and forth. I talk to her unloving, she talks to me disrespectful. I talk to her unloving. It is insane. I mean, this is one of the biggest epidemics in relationships across the world. I promise you. And so when you're careful with your words and you're making sure you're coming across unloving, when you're coming across loving, you diffuse and you disable that crazy cycle. Then you end up apologizing. Maybe 3 days down the road after you've been mad for each other for 3 days. And we're going to talk about that, Fernando. I'm glad you mentioned that because it's true. This is how people stay angry at each other for 25 years. There's people that are mad at other people that have been dead for 25 years and they're still angry, and you bring up their name and man, they're still as angry as they were then because they were unforgiving, They even forgot why they're angry at the person, but they're still angry, And so that's really important that you mentioned that, man, because the lack of forgiveness can really destroy your life. It can destroy who you are and who you're supposed to be. But not to get too sidetracked. So responding with maturity and love diffuses and disables a crazy cycle, okay? What it comes down to is this: if you're wrong, then recognize it, okay? To diffuse that crazy cycle is, if you're wrong, recognize it. Don't be coward. Don't be proud. If you're really interested in keeping your marriage healthy and your relationships healthy and working and functioning, put your pride aside. Put down your pride. It doesn't matter how many times you've apologized. It doesn't matter if you're the one that always comes forth and apologizes first. The point is to make it work, to make the love work. And so if you're wrong, then recognize it, listen to what the person is saying, and apologize. It's like Fernando just said, apologize to them. Be a man, be a woman, and apologize first, especially if you're wrong. Okay, that's one of the hardest things. Pride gets in the way. It says if you're right, okay, if there's an argument and you're the one that's right, okay, then don't let that person get a rise out of you. You know you're right. Then don't react. Don't react to the foolishness. If they're coming across foolish, if they're showing angry and unloving words or unloving ways, don't react to them because you know that you're right already. Okay? What you want to do is don't allow their emotions to drag you in and suck you into the moment, and respond. Prepare how you're going to respond to them. If this is going to work, okay, and you're the one who's right, then your responsibility is to respond with love to their foolishness and to their stupidity, okay, if that's what they're being, and respond with love and be ready to forgive. Okay, when your husband or your wife is having a moment where they're acting foolish and saying stupid stuff, then you, as the more mature at that moment, choose to love them and choose to say, I am not going to respond here, okay? I'm going to prepare myself to forgive them as soon as they recognize that they're wrong. Hopefully they recognize that they're wrong. This happens with me and my wife all the time. I mean, this is why I love her, adore her, because I am growing so much and learn so much from her. She is the most patient in the world. Okay, sometimes pretty much she stays quiet and lets me pretty much make a fool of myself at times. And what ends up happening is I just end up listening to myself and end up recognizing, dude, you're dumb. You're just sitting here talking nonsense and being dumb and angry, and you're the only one talking, you know. And so a person will pretty much, recognize how dumb they're being if you just let them talk long enough. And so anyways, if you're the mature one at the moment, choose to respond with love and choose and be ready to forgive them. Okay? That's how you prepare yourself and you break the crazy cycle from happening. Don't respond, okay, to their hurtful words. Don't respond to that, because you'll probably respond disrespectful. Going on, okay? Love doesn't keep score of wrongs. Love doesn't bring up the past failures. Very important. Read the love chapter, 1 Corinthians chapter 13. Love does not keep track of people's wrongs, and true love does not bring up the past. Okay, what does this mean? Well, it's a matter of judgment, okay, and forgiveness. Which way do you want to go? Do you want to play the judge in the situation, or do you want to be the loving one? Okay, that's the decision, the deciding factor there. Okay, if you decide to judge a person in their foolishness and their failure, okay, what you do is you create a barrier to being intimate with them, to having that connection with them. Okay, when you choose to come across judgmental to their failures, to their wrongs, when you choose to respond with love and forgiveness to their failures and to their wrongs, what you do is you reconcile, you build the opportunity to become intimate again, to move past this moment and to grow. Okay, that's what happens when you choose to respond with forgiveness and love as opposed to judgment. Responding with judgmentalness is always going to destroy your ability to make up. Okay, responding with love and forgiveness instantly begins to build it back up and squash it. Okay, so I want to read the scripture, Ephesians chapter 4 verse 26 and 27 says, "Be angry, but do not sin. Do not let the sun go down on your anger." Okay, and give no opportunity to the devil. What is this saying? It's saying it's okay to be angry in any moment in time. It's okay to be angry and feel the feelings you're feeling, the hurt, whatever it might be, but don't sin. Don't respond based on that anger and that emotion. Okay, it says don't let the sun go down on your anger. If you're feeling angry, if you're feeling hurt, don't go to bed angry. Don't let it get to that point. Make sure you learn how to squash it and respond with forgiveness, because it's only that forgiveness that's going to allow you to respond and squash it today before the sun goes down. In other words, don't wait till tomorrow. Why? Well, what happens with this? Well, the longer you stay unforgiving, the longer you don't move past this moment and problem, you're giving an opportunity to the devil to infiltrate your marriage and your relationship and begin to destroy and nitpick. Okay, you hold on to that, and then what happens is the devil is able to mess with your thinking about that person. He's able to mess with your thinking about your relationship and your marriage. And so what that means is don't bring yesterday's failures into your day today, because today is a new day, and your failures from yesterday should not be destroying your new opportunities today. What else does this mean? It means that God's love enables us to choose to live free from yesterday's failures. Okay, if God gives you and I the opportunity through his love and forgiveness to be free from the failures that we've made in the past, then we're nobody to hold people prisoners to their failures. Okay, we're nobody to hold them down like that, because God doesn't even do that to us. He forgives us the moment we ask him to forgive us. And so we should be just as forgiving to the people we say we love. Okay, that's love in action. And then forgiveness, again, forgiveness is not a feeling. Okay, it's a commitment and an expression of love. If you're waiting to feel like forgiving someone who's hurt you deeply and who's really wounded you, you're wasting your time and you're being foolish. You're never going to feel like it. Okay, it's something that's produced. Forgiveness is produced out of your love for them, your deep love for them. Okay, your forgiveness comes from the love that you know how to perform and the love that you choose to perform. Okay, nothing's gonna inspire you to forgive someone who just hurt you deeply. You have to choose it. You have to be intentional. And just to go through real quick here, we're moving on to humble words. So that was kind words. We're moving on to humble words. What are humble words? Humble words are words that make requests and not demands. Okay? When you ask something of your spouse or the person that you're showing love to or you want to show love to, are you requesting something from them with love? Or are you demanding something right now? Okay? How are you saying it? Pay attention to the way you say things, because you're either going to be requesting something and giving them the choice to respond, or you're going to demand something and making them feel like they're obligated to respond. This is the difference between humble words of love and demanding words of anger. Okay? What's the difference here? Your desires and your needs. Okay? If you're going to request your desires with love, what you're doing is you're guiding the person to teach them what it is that you need and what you want. Okay? But if you choose to demand your desires and your wants from that person, then what you're doing is you're creating an ultimatum. You're creating conditions. Okay? And when you're creating that environment, a negative environment of ultimatums and negativity by demanding something instead of requesting it with love, what happens is that you create a really, really negative environment when they're no longer operating in love. Now they're responding in, okay, I don't want to hear your mouth, so whatever, I'm going to do this. Okay, I don't want to fight with you no more, so whatever, I'm going to do this. They settled for the negative responses. Don't you prefer that they respond with love and actually enjoy the moment with you? Well, there's a difference between how you request something with love or you demand it with anger. Okay? And so angry demands, what they do is they belittle and they discourage people. Okay? And they create a tyranny, okay, or an obligation. What does that mean? You become a dictator, you become a tyrant, where people, you're saying, this is what I want it now. And so what people do is they respond out of obligation, out of fear, out of, frustration, out of annoyance, as opposed to if you request something with love and patience and humility, they're going to respond with love, with affection, with desire to do this for you and not just to shut you up, And so there is a big difference here, guys. It makes like night and day. It makes all the difference. These are the things that we miss in our marriages, and we wonder why they fall apart. We push all these things aside. Okay, so demands, they create fear, they create guilt. When you demand something like that, it creates emotions that are negative, but it doesn't create love. So if you just demanded something and the person did it, I promise you they probably did it just to keep you quiet or just because they're scared of you or whatnot. They didn't do it because they love you. And that does not feel good, So humble words, very important to be careful how you request things from the one you love. And last but not least, make sure that you're very careful of how you're constructing your words. Each of us have a certain way of communication, as we talked about earlier. We have certain languages, certain words, certain methods that work with us that don't work with others. Learn and tailor your spouse's love language to who they are. Okay? Learn what makes them motivated. Learn what encourages them, and then build your way of talking to them with the love language. Build it around who they are, not around who you think they are, or not around who you want them to be. Build it around who they are so that they can understand it to the max. And so, you can learn their desires and their insecurities. You can learn their different ways to compliment them and affirm them. You can speak highly of your spouse or the one you love to other people. Eventually, it'll get to their ears. You can write letters and poems. There are so many things. There's so many things. And you know what? Just as a quick, I'm bringing this to a close here. Just as a quick exercise, if you really want to start somewhere, I'm going to give you something to start here. The book, The 5 Love Languages gives you. And it's tonight. Don't wait till tomorrow. Tonight. That the person you've married, the person you're with, okay? Take time to make a list. Both of you. Take time to make a list of all the positive things about them. Okay? I don't care if you're about to divorce. Okay? Take the time, or you're thinking about it. Take the time to make a list of every single possible thing you can think about that person. Okay? And as you realize and notice more every day, throughout the day, add it to that list. Okay? And then each week, pick 2 of those things from that list that you made to randomly, verbally compliment them on that thing that you've identified that is a positive trait about them. Okay? Build a list, write them down, all the positive things, and then choose 2 to compliment them just randomly throughout the week. Okay? And the one who's receiving the compliment, don't respond with another compliment. You don't have to say I love you back. You don't have to say something nice back to them at that moment. Okay? Just say thank you. I appreciate that. Take a moment to recognize that they've recognized and verbally complimented you for something positive that they've taken the time to recognize. And the other spouse is to do the same thing. Okay? Take 2 things about your husband, about your wife, and two of them a week, and compliment them. And vice versa. Husband, you don't have to respond to her other than recognizing that she did it and saying thank you, showing gratitude. Start practicing this. And I promise you, it's going to change up the atmosphere and the environment in your relationship. It's going to change it up to a certain extent. Again, this is not the final solution, but this is going to create an environment where you're wanting to start working with each other, and then to start discovering more deeply what it is and how your spouse or your couple speaks and what language you can define what language they speak on a greater level. Maybe it'll come to a place where you need to spend more close time together, physical time next to each other, doing things, buying each other gifts. But start with words of affirmation, with words of encouragement, start with words of humility, start with words of compliments. And I promise you it's gonna change the dynamics of your relationship. Anyways, I'm a little bit over here. I'm gonna get going now. I will continue. Of course, there's 13 lessons. This is just number 4. Next week I will move into number 5, which is really, really good. It's gonna be love language number 2. All right, guys. Thank you guys for listening. I love you. Have a good day. God bless you. Pray for me. Pray for us and our family. And we'll, if you're single, you can totally take these rules and learn them now so you could be a master. Okay? Christian is asking, be a master so that you can actually be ready for that girl. And she don't have to struggle with some tonto, that doesn't know nothing. Become the man that your woman in the future is going to need. Okay? Single people, this is for you. Become the man and the woman that your future husband and future wife need you to be, so you can be ready then and not have to go through the period of marriage where it's so hard and falling apart because you didn't take the time to learn this before you said I do. Okay? Save yourself some problems. God bless you guys. I love you guys, and we'll be talking. If you guys have any questions, send me any questions, email me, and we'll see you on Monday. God bless. All right? Have a good night. Have a good weekend.